Hey guys, Math here once again, and today I want to show you and talk to you about the Berserker that I've been playing in the hardcore solo self-found flashback league. God fucking damn it! Jesus Christ. So yeah, the Debeon's Dirge Berserker, which was going pretty well, up until this absolute metric pile of bullshit hit me, which was, in the end, a combo of Martyr's Ghost explosions and Phenomenal Presence, which gives you additional chaos damage as non-chaos, which triggers and synchronizes nicely with Martyr's explosion. So instead of just causing pure fire explosions, it's also causing a bunch of chaos damage too, because prior to this I had absolutely no problem spinning through Martyr Ghosts. I was at 6k life in a level 70 no damage modded map with perma fortify, perma endurance charges, and a whole bunch of leech and life regen. My character was pretty fucking tanky, so nothing at that stage had threatened me or even come close to doing too much damage, and then a combo of total bullshit that you can't really see coming ended my character's existence. But I, of course, still want to go over it for you guys because, all in all, I thought it was a pretty successful character, given that it was very, very budget as a solo self-found character, so I didn't really have much to work off of. It was basically just a Debeon's Dirge, which is pretty worthless, though it was 6-linked, and the 6th link was mostly just for the fortify, so I could get some bit more tankiness happening, or at least reliable tankiness, but I don't think at all necessary. So the character was pretty budget. It was fairly effective at the lower tier maps as a Berserker, which is my first time trying the Berserker since the new Ascendancy changes, and all in all, it was pretty good. I really didn't mind the rage degen mechanic that I currently had, which was only half of the rage, so 5% degen, paired with blood rage. Using my leech and my regen, I didn't really notice any degen, and it wasn't really a problem. I'm not too sure about the whole 10% degen coming in, especially for hardcore. That would be pretty tough, I would think, at least mentally, to try and prepare for. But on softcore, I don't think that should be a problem at all. You should be able to out-leech it fairly nicely, and that is a fairly good buff for damage overall. Now, the biggest problem is that I'm just not sure this offers anything over a champion, for example, because champion is pretty much straight up better damage-wise than Berserker with the right mods on a crit based character. On a non-crit character, I can definitely see some Berserker viability and some usefulness there, but otherwise, I'm not too sure it's ever supposed to be played, given that there is a pretty nasty drawback of 5 to 10% degen, extra damage taken, things like that, compared to a champion, which is still a lot of damage, but does not require you to take any additional damage. So this was a Cyclone character based around Debeon's Dirge, which is pure cold, and I haven't done a Cyclone in a bit of a while, and Cyclone, not the greatest thing ever, because the area is really hard to scale compared to how it used to be, but it's still fairly effective, and for this character, for this type of character, I wouldn't have really wanted to use anything else except for Charge Dash, and I did use Charge Dash for quite a while, but on some cases it just didn't feel quite as fluid, though in other cases it felt better than Cyclone. So it's kind of touch and go as to what you really want to do with a Debeon's Dirge or a character like this. Cyclone probably felt the best overall, but Charge Dash definitely had its moments where it felt a lot better. And then there's other skills like Sunder and Ancestral Call with other skills, but I'm not sure there's enough attack speed to be gained from the weapon itself and then the passive tree to really feel good with anything besides a Charge Dash or a Cyclone. So I'll just run down the character's gear and setup and what I did to build it real quick in case you want to do something similar, though it is a pretty basic character, so there's not going to be much to say or much to talk about, but regardless of that, let's get into it. So hopefully it's a pretty quick overview. There's really not too much to say. It is a level 84 Berserker at this point, which got a couple levels higher than the Elementalist I did, and I really wasn't anticipating dying anywhere near the way I did, or at that stage of the game, because I am pretty tanky for the content I was doing. The, low tier maps, like tier 4 to 6 at that point. It's all I really have, and it's all I was really needing to do at the time, because that's what my character's well enough built for. Now, it's not very special because the only thing I really have here is a Debeon's Dirge. The entire reason I made the character is because that's what I had in my stash as solo self-found, and I figured that's probably my best bet to make a decent character around. So the rest of the gear is pretty basic. It's just some life and resists wherever you can get it. And there's really nothing too special going on. So what we're really building around is the Debeon's Dirge, which is a bunch of flat cold damage, some additional elemental damage when you walk ride, and the 15% movement speed. And that's basically the reason we went Berserker, so that we could harness Warbringer just a little bit nicer. For the walk ride duration, and then also you get rage during your walk rides. So currently with the Enduring Cry cooldown of 2 seconds, it takes you about 20 seconds to fill up a full rage bar. So my first 2 ascendancy points was just more damage, and then I grabbed this, and that means that I can have my faster walk cry, my regen from the walk cry, and also rage pretty reliably and sustainably without needing to do something like this, because this is just going to be a quality of life node for boss fights and all of that, building up stacks a bit quicker. And then ultimately, once you get to Uberlab, you grab Rite of Ruin, and that's not something that was available to me because I've only got 2 trials done at the moment, and also it's probably going to be a bit sketchy for hardcore, but I think it's definitely worth doing and grabbing for softcore for sure. It'll be something like 10% degen total from the rage, and then on top of that, if you use blood rage, you're looking at about 14%, and currently I can handle 10% just fine thanks to the regen I have over here, 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 here and here, and then also a stone golem. So I currently out regen 9 or 10% just fine, and then I've also got a decent bit of leech and leech rate. So my leech helps out quite a lot as well in combat, but out of combat I am currently out regenning it. With the Uberlab it'll be a lot harder, but I think still fairly worth in the end. Now, as I said, I'm really not sure about the viability of Berserker overall, because Champion will just do everything a bit better without any of the drawback. Except for if you're a non-crit character. So if you're a non-crit character, I think Berserker can be nice, and that does bring me to the point of having Elemental Overload over here. So that's one of the only real LE damage or damage gaining nodes we have. This one here, bit of damage over there, bit of damage down here and here, but LE Overload gives you 40% more if you crit when you don't have any other crit multi, for example, and it's kind of tough to balance my accuracy on this character because I don't have much. So it is a little bit hard to get more accuracy than 80% if you don't have any gear for it. So that's been one of my challenges, since I can't just pick up a piece of accuracy gear. So if you're going to do something like this, you really want accuracy somewhere, like a helm, a ring, amulet, gloves, and then you can actually keep up Elemental Overload pretty reliably, because for me it's up something like 50% of the time, which is still worth doing over a Resolute Technique. But if you just cannot for the life of you get any accuracy, then Resolute Technique and no LE Overload is totally fine as well. So I did also get a Cold Steel pretty late, like a few levels ago, and that allowed me to convert these nodes over here into cold damage instead of physical. So I was pathed through here, here, and here. After I did the Cold Steel, I then pathed down this way and took these nodes instead, because it's a pretty efficient use of damage nodes. I then have some damage nodes here, converted a bit of our physical, which isn't very substantial, but it is still a good and worthy node of taking. And then I was going to grab Flash Freeze as well. And lastly, I grabbed these 2 nodes down here instead of these, because as a non-crit build, I can't really freeze anything without crits. So then we have 10% chance to freeze on top of this over here. That gives us 15% total. I then run Frostbite, so then we're looking at 28% chance to freeze, and that's pretty reliable freeze chance for a character like this that has so much cold damage and hits so fast. So overall, that was a really strong defensive buff, and worth doing, I would say, to get the freeze action happening as a non-crit build. So in the end, I was running a Cyclone with Cold Pen, Hypothermia, LE damage with attacks, increased area, and Fortify. Fortify being my 6th and least useful link, because I usually rely on Leap Slam and Fortify to keep it up whenever I need in tough situations. So ultimately, a 6th link is currently wasted, and increased area doesn't feel that necessary either. And overall, when you're going for real damage, you're going to be turning your 180k damage into something like 400k by swapping out a couple of links. but I never really needed to do that at my level of content. So that is non-shaper damage. The damage is never going to be too huge on a build like this since it is fairly basic and I don't really have any crazy gear. You're going to want like early damage to attacks everywhere you can. I could only get it on a belt and an amulet, but if you get it on your rings, you can get some accuracy on your rings, you can get some flat cold damage. You can start to scale the damage a bit higher, even some appropriate jewels, but it's a non-crit build with the Debeon's Dirge. It's really not going to go that high. It's just a nice starter build and budget sort of thing to get through early content and get yourself started with some farm. And ultimately, it was pretty nice to use Cyclone for a change, especially as a Berserker with the damage, rage, and Warcry stuff. So there's probably not really anything else to mention. It's fairly basic. I'll just leave the paste bin up in the character description for the YouTube description, comment, whatever. And yeah, leave it at that. It was pretty fun. Not necessarily worth doing unless you're extremely poor and just starting a league out, but is what it is. And I am starting to level a champion Frostblades at this point because I have a Touch of Anguish and I've also found an Abyssus. So I'm going to shove that Abyssus into my champion and do hardcore solo self-found Frostblades plus Abyssus and see how that goes. It's going to go terribly, but we'll see how it goes. Terribly. So the idea about the Abyssus is just help my single target damage with the Frostblades for the melee portion, because of course it doesn't affect the ranged portion. And the Touch of Anguish then covers all of the AoE that we're going to need to do with the skill. So in any case, guys, hope you enjoyed the little rip clip and the wrap up of what I've been doing for the past few days. And yeah, thank you very much for watching and see you next time.